Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, and I have another double dose song for you guys today. Today we are covering the song Fools, and you could hear the double dose of the song here, or you can just look on the internet or probably outside your window and see a couple of them. However, before we get into the song, I did promise you guys yesterday that I was going to get to the album cover, because I haven't actually talked about that. I usually do that in the first episode of a season. However, with all the excitement and craziness about to ensue, just totally slipped my mind. Also, I hadn't grabbed the book back off the shelf yet. So here's what I pieced together about what happened, and it makes sense to me now that I think about it. I had found a copy of the deluxe CD online. And so I was hesitant to order the iTunes versions because you don't get the books. So I've been trying to find them online. I found the deluxe version. I ordered it. And what I received was the regular version of the album, actually the Japanese version of the album, which is about to be ironic. And the bonus tracks weren't there, and neither was the book explaining, the history and all that. It's a nice little book that comes with it, but certainly does not, help dig into anything that we're talking about here. So with that, I thought, all right, well, if I can't find this online, I'm just going to go ahead and get the iTunes version. So the iTunes version is what I've been working off of. I did put the CD in to see if it was a different mix and master. It is not. It sounds almost exactly the same. So there's really no benefit using one over the other. However, because of just the 5 miles, 10 miles high thing, I thought, I would really like to have the book. So I went back online. I found another copy, just ordered it today. I'm sure it will arrive long after I'm done with the album. However, I'll be able to at least possibly revisit some of the explanations as to what's going on in a later episode. But let's get to the cover. So the cover is very interesting. The first thing that struck me about it is that I love that it's in black and white. It looks like a pencil drawing. There is a storm in the air. It looks like possibly, well, you would assume what would be explosions and smoke as opposed to clouds for some of it, or maybe jet trails, because what we're really looking at is the band dressed as soldiers raising their Uriah Heep flag. Now, I'm not sure what the insignia on the flag is. It looks like a backwards letter N, and the flag is blowing in the wind. Now, for an image for an album called Conquest, it totally makes sense. They've won the battle. They're putting their flag up, and they have won. So I get that. What is interesting to me is it's very reminiscent of a statue in Arlington, Virginia. And if I remember right, the statue was called the Battle of Iwo Jima, Iwojima, which was a 5-week battle on an island in Japan, and was said to be one of the bloodiest battles. And this would be back in, I think it was 1945. Now, the statue that rests at Arlington National Cemetery was built in 1954 and is actually said to be really a tribute to all the soldiers that had fought in wars for, a couple hundred years. So I'm not really sure, but here's what I can tell you. I've been there. When I was, I think, 5 years old, we went to Washington, D.C. I had a certain level of appreciation for things back then, even at that young age. I'd studied a lot about Washington, D.C. We had sent away for pamphlets. We knew about all the memorials. I didn't know the depth of the history of a lot of this stuff, but I do remember going to the Washington Monument, going to the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial. I remember going to Ford's Theater and to the room across the street where they brought Lincoln's body and the mattresses preserved there with his blood, which is just really kind of weird. But Ford's Theater itself is like super creepy. But part of that, I think, is because we know what happened there. It's also, a dimly lit place. It's lit by candles and not electricity. So that's going to have a little bit different of a feel to it. But in any case, I at 5 years old, felt very creeped out there. Now, we went to Arlington National Cemetery. We saw the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier. We saw the Kennedy Flame, and we saw this statue, which I always referred to when I was a child as Iwo Jima. That was, to me, the name of the statue. I didn't know anything about the history, the battles, didn't even know it was a real place in the world. I'm 5. Give me a break. So what I can tell you, though, is I remember my grandfather kneeling down next to me and asking me what I thought. And I told him that it was scary. And he said, why? And I said, it looks like the eyes are following me. So I remember looking at one of the soldiers, and I'm pretty sure, well, I can't remember which one it was for sure when I'm looking at the cover, but I remember looking at the carved eyes in the sculpture. And as I walked from one side of the statue to the other, it really seemed like the eyes were following me. Now, I'd like to think I had a pretty good imagination at 5 years old, but there are some paintings that do that. There are some statues that do that. And my grandfather said, well, that's a sign of a great artist. I don't know. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know if there's a strategy to it. I don't know what causes that to happen. I don't know if it was accidental. Maybe it's just the angle of the eyes and the light, the way that it plays off them. I have no idea. But I do remember thinking that it was a very creepy statue, but just because of that. Apart from that, it's a cool appreciation for all the people that have fought and, tried to get rid of tyrants and all that sort of thing. So I'm not sure exactly why the artist chose that particular statue, because, we're talking about a European band doing a play on an American statue. So that, alone could cause a lot of controversy. Maybe that was the idea. Maybe, stirring the pot will bring some album sales. I really have no idea. But I also look at an album like Deep Purple and Rock, who used the Mount Rushmore statue as the basis of their album cover. So it's not unheard of, but I have to wonder if there wasn't maybe something strategic behind it to drive sales, have a little controversy, or, oh, look, they're paying homage to this American statue and then getting, people in America to buy it because it has a relic on the cover. So I don't know. I mean, there could have been a lot of reasons behind it, but I will say the concept of it and the album title certainly makes sense. I love the sky in the background. I mean, it's just, things are going on. And, you can clearly see everybody on the cover. You can see Ken on the left, Mick on the bottom right, Trevor Boulder in the bottom middle. And I'm not sure which one is John Sloman and which one is Chris Slade, but they are in the top middle section of the statue. It's a really cool cover. It's very well done. I can definitely appreciate it. And I love a good pencil drawing. The detail on this is so intense. There's not a mistake about who anybody is, what they're wearing, what they're carrying, what the, like the little cantina that Ken Hensley has on his belt. Like, you can very clearly see everything. And it's a very, very well done album cover, I have to say. However, this episode is not about album covers. It is about music. And here is the studio released Conquest version of Fools by Uriah Heep. I'm pretty sure I said it at the end of the last episode, but I love the mood of this song. It's interesting. It's intriguing. It makes me put a question mark up there as to what's going on. Why am I feeling this feeling? Why is there this mood? It draws me in, and I really like that. I love the sound of the guitar. Now, the guitar, I feel like there's two of them, and they're slightly to the right, which is usually, Ken's spot on guitar when he plays slide. Mick is usually over to the left, but this song was panned a little bit differently. Again, we've got, different engineer, different studio. And the drums, I like the kick drum on this. It sounds a little bit heavier. That's nice for this song. I think it's really important. Bass is playing some very beautiful stuff. Ken's really laying back so far on this album, not playing anything really intense, but holding that sound together. You don't have to play intense all the time. Sometimes your part is to just thicken or, add that background sound to really fill the gaps in the audio in. So far it's got a really good sound to it.
I know this feeling inside has just made up my mind. I'm gonna take this chance and do what's in my heart. You always said that you'd stand by me and help me get along. So understand I must do what's in my heart.
Music is really just beautifully laid back to allow John Sloman's voice to shine here. And it's good because this is really emotional. This is, sort of an outpour from the heart. So to be able to really just focus on that and not have music filling anything else in and kind of pulling us away from the lyrics, it's actually really nice to do this. I like what Ken's playing in the background. You have a couple of different synths, but it really sounds good. The dynamics here and the articulations that we hear from John are pretty intense, and it really shows kind of what I've been saying all along, where he's really a different kind of singer. You don't hear people sing like this quite often. I almost feel like he's a little shaky, and I don't mean that in like he's done drugs or a lot of caffeine or whatever, but almost like there's an uncertainty or a nervousness in his voice that is causing some of these pitches, but the end result is fantastic. I think he sounds great. It's definitely something you have to get used to because it's much out of the box here for what you would typically hear in a vocalist. But he definitely has a style that's all his own, and I like it. Yeah, I like the way the music escalates here. It was really nice to have that first verse or first couple lines where, it's just kind of the keys and the vocals, but then, it's got to kick up a notch somewhere, because if you're going to hit into a heavier chorus, you got to start building towards that chorus. Otherwise, it just sounds really awkward as a transition. So it's a nice build. I like the drums. I like that Chris Slade is not playing very aggressively here. His fills are very simple, sometimes just a couple of tom hits. Really moves the song forward, but at the same time doesn't really distract at all, because you don't want to get too crazy in a part like this. Now, once you get into the chorus and you're kind of at the heavier point of the song, or if you keep it at that level, sure, you could kind of go off a little bit as a drummer. But for a part like that, you don't want to, you don't want to come in and say, hey, I'm here, everybody, ignore everything else because I'm going to drown it all out. You want to play for the song. And I think Chris is doing a great job here doing that. Trevor's playing some very simple stuff that works. The addition of the organ is really nice. It's a nice build as we hit the first chorus.
Don't you know that fools play games? Don't you know the fools play games? And I know that I'm not afraid of you. Fools play games. Don't you know the fools play games? And I know that I'm not afraid of you.
I would love to be or have been a fly on the wall during the discussions of how backing vocals were going to be handled for each song, because I think the choice here to keep it a little bit lower is really a great choice, because the mood of the song is a little bit, like you're in a dimly lit room, or it's got like that fall overtone where the skies are gray. It just has that feeling for me. So to not have, the higher harmonies in the backing vocals right now really is a good choice. It fits the song so well. And, I don't know, if they had done it and that would have been the way I heard it, I might not have thought much about it. But the fact that they didn't really stands out to me. I think it sounds great. I like the way that John is just a little bit on top of them in the vocal, because the lead singer should be a little bit above the backing vocals at least. And it sounds really good.
Day after day, I feel this way, that I need to be moving on. I depend
So this is what I mean about build. They're building into the next either the solo or where the next chorus is going to be, and it's a buildup that's higher than the first buildup they did going into the first chorus. Also, if you noticed on the going into the first chorus in that verse, Chris Slade played just a 2-tom hit fill, and on this verse he played a 3-tom hit fill, which was the same with an extra tom at the end of it. And I thought that was really cool. It's just those subtle builds that that really can keep a song interesting. It can keep it consistent and have a continuity to it. But also, you're adding flavors as you go along to, to refresh the palate. So it's really a nicely designed song and very well performed. Yes, this I love. I love the idea of an emotional song having a great emotional solo in it. Mick's doing a lot of stuff in this solo. The guitar sounds great. It feels great. And I love that it really stands out, but yet doesn't so much overshadow everything else. You still get all the instruments in your mix, but you also really do get to feature the guitar here. And the sound of the guitar is great. I love what he played there. It's very emotional, very feeling, fits the song beautifully. And this is, to me, just like one of those ones that would be on my list of top Mick Box solos, because I think it just hits everything for me. It's a real risk to have a solo that's that strong, with strong music backing it up, thick backing keyboards, and then to just let it digress down into a very simple form, because you've got to rebuild it up. And I liked that they did it, though. I liked that it was short, and it was a short build back up. So it's like, we're just going to dip down for a few seconds here, and then we're going to be back in it. I thought that was very tastefully done. A nice creative change, a risk for sure, because, you can lose people in a situation like that if you don't do it well. But they did it well. So they didn't lose my interest. They didn't lose my focus at all. Very well done. That was a fantastic drum roll going into the repeat of the intro of the song. Obviously, it's a reprised version of it. It's much more powerful. You have the whole band playing at a more accelerated level. I love what the bass is doing going into the transition into the repeat, almost where, you would have a drum fill, but we're getting bass fills in here, and they're really interesting. I don't know if he's playing a fretless. It almost sounds like a fretless bass at some points there when he's doing those fills. But either way, I really like it. I like that they broke up the repeating chorus with this return to the opening pattern. I think that's good, because basically, it starts with 2 minutes to go in the song. So if you're just going to repeat the chorus over and over again, you got to do something different at some point. So I really like that they switched it up with repeating this pattern. Well, obviously, I'm a huge fan of the vocalizing here. I think it's really powerful. There's some very strong sounds in John Sloman's voice, and I love the pitch that he's hitting. I think it really sounds impassioned to me, and it really goes to show off the range and the skill that he has. You know that you can hit those notes with that kind of power, and you could kind of bend the notes as you go down in pitch a little bit, but it sounds really good. I also love the bass and drums here, and I think too it's interesting to point out that there was a point where I thought it was going to end because the drums kind of gave a slowing down feel to it in the middle. And that, again, is kind of a risky thing because it gives you the appearance that the song is going to slow down, but it doesn't. So it's kind of misleading and could be off-putting to some listeners. For me, I'm kind of used to that stuff, especially as a drummer. But yeah, it sounded really good. Very good and powerful version of this song. Remember hearing it on that anthology I've been telling you guys about, and I was just blown away by how good this song is. And it was one that I listened to quite often. You know, the power in the song, the strong guitars, the solo, the vocals, everything, you know, the keyboards, keeping it running in the background, just absolutely amazing, the layering on this song. So I've always been a fan of it. But here's a version I'm not as familiar with. And again, this would be from the 5 miles or 10 miles, whichever one you want to call it. This would be Fools with John Lawton on vocals. So the recording's rough, the mix is rough. Yes, we know this isn't a final version, but man, the musicianship is there. It sounds great. The chorus, the choral section of the vocals here sounds really, really dark, darker than the last version, I think. I like what John Lawton is doing, singing over them. Definitely Lee Kerslake on drums, no doubt about that. That is his playing. But it sounds good. It sounds different, you know, slightly different than the other version. It's, I think, a little bit darker, but all the elements are there. Well, it's pretty similar, isn't it? But it is, I think, a little bit faster, which is going to change how the singer is going to approach the song. You know, if it's a slower tempo, they've got a lot more room. They can kind of wander around vocally. They're going to often take the time to do it. This being a little bit faster, you know, John Lawton here doesn't have quite the room that John Sloman does when he sings the song because the tempo is a little faster. But it sounds good. The elements are there. You can really see how the final song came to be. You can see how far they got while they were working with Lee and John Lawton on this version of it, and then comparing that to the final version, pretty obvious how far they got and what changed.
Tell me to carry on. So as the days go by and the nights are never round, you play the clubs and you play the game. The next day you will find you have to try. I'm pleased and fool again. Don't you know that?
Is it just me, or does John Lawton sound a little bit raspy here and there? I mean, again, demo version, so it could have been at the end of the session. His throat was tired or whatever, but he does sound a little bit raspy. Also, interestingly, I was talking about in the first version, you know, the drum fills and doing builds and stuff. Now, keeping in mind that the tempo is faster, just like the singer is going to sing the song differently, the drummer is going to approach the song differently as well. So it isn't exactly an apples to apples comparison, but I do find it interesting where Chris Slade played the fill with just those two toms. Lee Kerslake played a similar fill, but used more toms and just did, single hits down the scale. But, the tempo of the song kind of called more for that than it did what Chris Slade did in his version at a slower tempo. So, even just a few BPM different, the song's going to be handled completely differently by the musicians. Boy, Trevor Boulder sure does love to pop the notes on this album. I have to say, I've heard that quite a bit now. It sounds really good, though. I really like that. Also, the guitars sound really strong. The vocals sound strong. There is a huge difference now that you can hear in the way that the chorus is done. The backing vocals are singing similarly, doing a bit of a different pattern to it, but the tones that they're using are very similar to the version that we hear on the Conquest album. But I like this. I like that there's a little bit more energy in it. I like that the chorus feels completely different because what John is doing what John Lawton is doing versus what John Sloman did is very different. It's a different arrangement for the chorus. So that definitely makes it interesting to me. I think they both sound good. So obviously we're missing the guitar solo that we heard in the first version. That segment was much shorter, just repeating that intro part again. And then they kind of did the same thing. They went into that, let's drop the music down and let things get light and airy for a moment and do a quick build back up into the chorus. Kind of an awkward transition because it sounds like there was a drum and a crash cymbal that was missing there. But overall, I like the feel of it. I think it felt pretty good. I definitely missed the solo, though. So I heard a little bit of crackling in there. It sounded like something might have been peaking on the board and something else was kind of trying to push it back, possibly a compressor or something. But overall, yeah, I like it. For a demo version, it's really good. You can certainly see the roots of the song that show in what they grew into in the final version. But I think this is good. I think it's what I would expect the band at this time to have recorded. And the only disappointing thing to me is that there's no solo. But I'm glad they fixed that for the actual album release version. So there's another dual song show, guys. Really, really nice stuff. It's really good to see the contrast between the two bands, the different drummers and singers. but also keeping in mind that the song is at a different tempo, which is going to affect how either one of them would have handled it. So you can't expect them to handle it the same anyway, just because of that alone. But I love these insights into the band developing things at the time, and to be able to kind of see, here's the sketch and then here's the final piece of artwork. I really love that. Speaking of Fools, there is a Deep Purple song called Fools, which is one of my favorites from that band. And there is an alternative version of it on, I think it's the Shade 68 to 75, or I can't remember the title of the box set. I know it starts with Shades, but there is a short clip of the song Fools on there while they were rehearsing it, and Ian Gillan was working on developing the vocals. And you could see where he was going. You could see how it, developed into the final song, but it was very different. And personally, I love those insights. I think they're really cool. I think it's great to see how things come together, how things are developed by different musicians. I personally, and maybe it's the songwriter in me as opposed to the music fan, I'm not sure. Maybe it is the music fan, but in any case, I just love that kind of stuff. I wish there was more of it. So I'm really excited about this season to be able to see some of those moments and see how things were at one point and then what they turned into at another point. We don't get to see the progression along the way, of course, but we at least get a couple of snapshots of here's after the song was basically finished, and then here's the song after the new guys joined and they finished it. So really cool stuff. I'm loving this season. It'll be a few more episodes before we get back to doing that again, because, I only had so many that matched the songs on the album. But either way, I'm looking forward to all of them. This is a great album. Really digging the performances of Chris and John Sloman as they're added to the band. I love that Trevor Boulder is really coming alive on this album. There's more guitars, which is cool. Keyboards are really filling things in. It's just, for me, this is a great time in a rock and roll band's life. So you guys can see the way you see it. That's what I'm seeing in it. And there it is, another episode. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day today. Do something fun, make somebody smile. It's what it's all about. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magicians Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show. And thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!